So we're about to start our program. This is a panel discussion about being LGBTQ+, being Armenian, and also this is beyond the context of our recent controversy surrounding the California Fair Act and the Glendale and LA Unified School District diversity and inclusion curriculum. I do want to take the time right now to introduce our guest speakers. Our first guest speaker is Vic Jarami. And Jarami is an award-winning journalist and an editor and publisher of The Blunt Post. He is also the host and co-producer of the national headline news politics program, The Blunt Post with Vic on KPFK 90.7 FM. Most recently, Jarami wrote and directed and produced the investigation documentary film, The Motherland, which we just saw a short trailer of. And our second guest speaker is Robin Thoma. He is the executive director of the Los Angeles County Commission on Human Relations, an agency of LA County government that works to transform prejudice into acceptance, inequity into justice, and hostility into peace by advocating for human rights for everyone in LA County. He was also honored to serve as an advisor member of the 2010 Obama administration's delegation to the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. And he was invited to serve as an official US government delegation to the UN World Conference Against Racism in South Africa in 2001. Please, let's give our guest speakers a round of applause.
The reason we're here is the nonprofit organization that I founded 4 years ago, Truth and Accountability League, or TAAL. It was born out of a necessity. We've seen a rise in anti-Armenian racism, hate acts, hate crimes, Armenophobia. Some of it has to do with what's happening halfway around the world, but some of it does not. And TAAL is about monitoring any racism, bigotry against Armenians at the level of politics, media, intelligentsia, academics, and addressing them. So that's what we do, and this is one of the events that we've done. Very grateful for our partnership with LA County Commission on Human Relations, LA versus Hate. Robin is the head of that, as well as Glendale Community College. And I'm also grateful for Anthony for emceeing this, and for Christine from Glendale Unified School District to be here. If you don't take anything from today, whatever I have to say, is just hear this. You cannot groom anyone to change their sexual orientation or gender identity. It just doesn't work that way. And if it worked, I'd be straight, and I'm not. Because I was raised in a loving Armenian family, very normal, whatever that means. And that's not to judge families who are not your nuclear family. Loving mom, church-going, woman of faith, dad that provided, and grew up with two sisters, and I knew something was different about me when I was 3. So when parents say, oh, but kids that age don't know, no, they do. Because I wanted to play with dolls and my sister's stuff, and I didn't want to play with my boy cousins. And I knew, and it was frightening. And as I grew older, 8, 9, 10 years old, that difference became more apparent and more frightening. Then when I got into preteens and teens, when I saw my friends were interested in girls, and it was just really odd. You're terrified because you're like, wait, why don't I have those feelings? So when I was 18, just out of school, I was like, I not only, I mean, back then, the 90s, I wouldn't accept that I could possibly be gay. I was very defensive about it. I went on Lent That's, if you don't know what that is, it's the 40 days of fasting that Christians do from Ash Wednesday to Easter. And you make a pact with God, and you go on Lent. And Armenian Lent makes Catholic Lent look like child's play. Like, you have to become vegan. And I did Lent to turn straight. Didn't work, obviously. Then when I was 19, I was going to school, I was going to college and working part-time, making $7.50 an hour. And I was spending about 90% of my salary on a therapist twice a week for a year to turn me straight. And that didn't work. It wasn't until 27 when I first came out of the closet, and because I was just so frightened. And so, message there for me is, please, 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 there's no grooming, you cannot turn anyone gay, straight, trans, anything. It just doesn't work that way. And a lot of and we were talking about this earlier, a lot of the hysteria that happened last year was, as Jackie Goldberg said, it was based on hearsay. It was just people spreading false information on purpose, just to frighten people, you know? And parents were frightened, and they were confused, and they wanted answers, and a lot of people don't bother to do their own research and look it up. Now, some parents say, well, unless you have a kid, you'll never understand. Well, guess what? Unless you're me, who went to school bullied and taunted and harassed on a daily basis, you'll never understand.
Having been at the Human Relations Commission of LA County this many years, where we spend a great deal of our time collecting all of the reports of hate crimes and now other acts of hate, and we analyze those. We look at all the different reports that are coming from the state, the federal government, other reports from research institutions that are analyzing bullying and hate in the schools, that talk about the kind of hate violence that happens during certain periods of our history. I certainly, from that perspective, I know that what Vic is talking about, and I really appreciate him talking courageously about his story, because it's something that I think helps people understand some very simple but important facts. It wasn't until the state of California passed a law in 1990 that made it mandatory to report hate crimes. And then there was a lot of training that we did, and a lot of things that were said. I heard from certain, law enforcement officers who just said, why are we doing this? A murder's a murder. It doesn't matter if it's because you're targeting someone because of their ethnicity or their sexual orientation or their religion. I said, no, it matters. It matters a lot. And I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but we are going to be sharing the next annual report on hate crime in LA County, and it will be shocking. And people are more openly saying things that before they held back. They feel that there is some level of permission they have because it's reflected in some of our most powerful leaders that it's okay to say those things. One of the things we talk about at the Commission is that we're about securing human rights to advance human relations. And the idea is that you can't think of a more fundamental human right than the right to feel free of threat to your identity, that you can't even feel safe being who you are. I raised my kids here in Glendale. They went to Glendale Public Schools. And I was recently, when I say recently, in the past year and a half, I was able to be put in touch with the superintendent, who let me know there was something going on in the school district, that there were a lot of parents who were very angry about this new LGBTQ inclusive curriculum that was throughout the schools. And so I said, my son, who's an alumni, he's now in college. I think he would be happy to come back and talk about that, and just sort of share his experience and what his views on it are. And I think there's always a value put on hearing from students, even ex-students. And so he came with his girlfriend and my wife, and we arrived at the school board meeting, and what we saw was truly shocking. there were so many angry people carrying signs, making allegations, doing name calling those who were gathered in support of LGBTQ students, calling them pedophiles. I was among them. I was being called a pedophile because I was there to support the inclusive curriculum. I was there because I know that homophobia has long been one of the most common forms of harassment in our schools. And not just harassment, but leading to violence, and that's all schools. And I will tell you, so much of it is based, as you heard from Jackie Goldberg, on misinformation, on the mistaken idea that somehow there's improper, age-inappropriate information being provided to children. No, what's being provided to children is the idea that fellow students who may have two mothers or two fathers, or who themselves may be gay or lesbian, that they are somehow, it's okay to tease them, to harass them, to bully them. And that's unacceptable. That's why it's state law that that's not to happen, and that's why it is the community consensus, and that's why we exist as an agency. Thankfully, we're in a very different era. We have a PSA of the police chief of Glendale who is firmly supporting the reporting of hate crime. We have Margaret Cho, famous comedian, who's talking about the importance of reporting hate to LA versus hate. But we created a system that says no longer must you report to the police. And we do that because we learned that so many of the communities most targeted for hate simply don't feel comfortable reporting to the police.
Can you speak about the situation in the LGBT community in Armenia?
It has ways to go to have, LGBTQ acceptance and protections and all of that. And a lot of queer folks there are in the closet. I'm so openly gay, I can't be anymore. So when I go and I meet all kinds of people all the time, and it's not like I say, hey, I'm Vic, I'm gay, but if something comes up, like they're like, are you married? Or, we know a nice girl that we can introduce you to, then I'm like forced to say it. And what I've really understood, what I'm surprised with Armenians is that when you really tell them your personal story, they really get it. Like, they just get it. And it happened to me several years ago with this tough ex-boxer guy who was my guide. And I told him because I was at a restaurant and the restaurant owner was insistent that I meet her daughter. She's like, oh, he's Armenian American, and, maybe he's single, blah, blah, blah. And so I was forced to say, yeah. And of course, at first, he looked like he was shocked. For 5 seconds, I didn't know what was going to happen. And then I just kind of told him, like, what's up? And he was just so got it. And I thought, maybe he's just pretending because, I've hired him as my guide and, he doesn't want to lose business. But he really was cool. And the next year when I went back, I hadn't hired him, but he invited me to his home to meet his wife and family and all of that. And just a matter of, people need to hear the personal stories a lot of times, like just personal. And so there it is, the two sides of that, of what that situation is.
As a community, what do you believe is the best practice to speak to the younger generation about issues regarding self-identity?
So first I want to say that I realized that being here at Glendale Community College, I really was looking forward to it because I think it's such an important part of our future in terms of really understanding how to get more young people involved in this and recognizing that a lot of what happens in terms of social media and the internet is playing a big role in the way that people are addressing one another, both in expanding the sense of an acceptance of people who are different, but also normalizing a lot of hateful language, right? And I think that's a real concern of ours. So I think that there's that split in the community, in the youth community of folks who really are growing up with an understanding of the need to be open to diversity and to be inclusive, but at the same time, really used to reading a lot of horrible stuff online. We invite people to report all acts of hate, even when people are, it's not criminal, when people are just basically treating each other horribly because of their identity. And yet, I think that people feel like, well, what are you going to do online, right? So that's a lot of hate that doesn't get picked up and reported. And we're trying to figure out ways that we can counter. And we know that the social media platforms hired tons of people at one point to be able to identify and remove those kinds of things. Some have backed off from doing that and don't do it anymore. So we're creating a program working with the criminal justice partners so that we can create an experiential program, because we know that people, when they actually meet other people who are victims of hate, when they actually, what you're talking about, Vic, actually hear your story, you can actually change your mind, or at least open up, and not demonize them, not stereotype them, not make assumptions about who they are. And in doing that, it makes it very hard for people to act in the same way. And I just wanted to thank also Glendale Unified for being here and being supportive. But also, I see my friend Lynn Miyamoto, who's with the Unitarian Universalist Church, the Service Committee, which is a national organization that supports a lot of important human rights causes. So thank you all for being here, and just wanted to, yes, go ahead.
Thanks, Robin. Just really quick, just once again, thank you, Glendale Community College, for hosting us. And thank you, Robin, for your support, LA County Commission on Human Relations, LA versus Hate, for Glendale Unified support, and all of you who are here, including Zarik and Henrik, who work very closely with me at TAAL. And we also have Knights of Vartan represented here by Krikor, who's sitting over here quietly. He's probably shy. Knights of Vartan, an incredible Armenian American organization. And thank you, Anthony, for emceeing the event, and I'll let you wrap us.
All right, so I wanted to thank our guest speakers. Vic, thank you for your time. Robin, lending your expertise. I also wanted to add that we have Vic's business cards on the table just in case you have any questions or maybe you want to collaborate in different ways. We have his business cards over there. I wanted to thank all of you and your time. And my parting words is, it's nice to see a lot of you here in community, and I'm hoping that we can think of creative ways to reduce hate, discrimination, racism, not just here at Glendale Community College, but throughout the greater LA and California, and then hopefully in our nation, right, given the current political climate that we're in. So thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.